going to talk about habitat for plants. So you might have thought about habitat for animals, things like the ocean or the lake. Or you might have thought about your own habitat, let's say your house or your city or your apartment. But what about habitat for plants? Where do plants live and why? We're going to talk about 3 habitats: the desert, and the rainforest, and the Arctic. The desert is super hot and dry, the rainforest is humid and rainy, and the Arctic is cold and far north. All right, let's get started with learning about habitats for plants.
Some plants living in the desert. The desert is a dry place with little rain. Plants store water to survive in the desert. Cactus is a plant that grows in deserts. Cactus stores water in its leaves and gets nutrients from the sand to survive. Cactus comes in all shapes and sizes.
So the first habitat is a desert. Do you see that camel? Do you see how Bulky Junior is going to tell you all about the plants that live in the desert? So what did I say earlier about deserts? Deserts are so dry and it almost never rains. So plants are smart. They take in the water and they store it so that they can drink it and live later. A cactus is one of those famous plants. Have you ever seen a cactus? They're really funny looking because they can grow pretty big and they have spikes all over their leaves. They have all of these spikes. So if you touch a cactus, it might spike you. It might hurt. It might prick you a little bit. A cactus is a plant that lives in the desert. The desert is the habitat for the cactus. It stores the water that it gets when it rains. So even though deserts can be dry or even though deserts can be very hot, a cactus can still live. Isn't that kind of an interesting plant that it grows and it stores the water? It stores it to drink later. That's a desert, and that's a desert habitat for a plant like a cactus.
Many other plants live in the rainforest. It rains continuously in the rainforest. Rainforests cover only 6% of the Earth's surface, but they have more than half of the world and 10 animal species. The climate of a rainforest is very hot and humid. Many plants in rainforest have large, pointy leaves.
Next habitat is a rainforest. Do you see this koala? That's a little cute gray koala bear. Let's look at the rainforest and see what kind of habitat is it. So here we have Rapta. She's talking about the rainforest. Okay, in a rainforest, it rains continuously. That means constantly, raining and raining and raining every day. But in the rainforest, they have over 50% of the species in the world. That means over half of the kinds of animals in the world live in the rainforest. Over 50% of the different kinds of animals, they live in the rainforest. There are lots of plants there too that really like the rain. They like to be wet. Those plants and those animals call the rainforest their habitat. Now, have you ever been to a rainforest? The first thing you would feel is that it rains all the time and is really hot and humid. Humid means the air is full of water. There's so much water in the air that it feels heavy and wet all the time. That's humidity. That's being humid. So the rainforest is a very humid environment. It's a very humid habitat. Would you like that? Or would you like the dryness of the desert? You can compare. A desert is very dry, and the rainforest is very wet. Personally, what do you like more? I think I like the desert because it's just easier to live when it's not raining every single day.
Some plants live in the Arctic. The Arctic is an icy and cold place near the North Pole. Arctic plants grow in groups close to the ground. This keeps them safe from the cold and the wind. Arctic plants also have roots that grow close to the surface of the ground. This helps plants survive in frozen soil.
So now the Arctic habitat. Do you see the polar bear and the penguin? They live in the Arctic too. It's their habitat. So let's have a look at what grows and lives in the Arctic. There are some plants that live there. The Arctic, as you see, is icy and cold. It's near the North Pole. It's really far north. The plants that grow there, they live close to the ground because it's really, really windy. So because it's so windy, they live close to the ground where they can be safe. Okay, let's learn about the roots of the plants that grow in the Arctic. Do you see? We've got Rapja explaining it to us. They have to survive. They have to work so hard to survive because it's so cold and icy in the Arctic. The Arctic is interesting because it's far north. It's a really unique habitat. It has animals like polar bears and penguins, animals that can live in really cold weather. There's a lot of snow, a lot of ice, there's a lot of wind, so the plants that grow there, they live close to the ground and they put roots deep into the soil to help protect them. So these are really strong plants. If a plant likes an Arctic habitat, it means it's strong and can survive even really bad weather. So, we learned about 3 different plant habitats. Let's review. What are they? The first was the desert. The second was the rainforest. And the third was the Arctic. Can you tell me one feature about all of them? The desert is super hot and dry. It almost never rains. The rainforest is the opposite. It rains continuously. That means it rains without stopping. It's hot and humid in the rainforest. And what can you tell me about the Arctic? The Arctic is cold and windy. It's hard to live there. So what do you think would be your favorite place to live? If you were a plant, which habitat would you choose? Do you remember also what we learned about cactuses? Cactuses can hold water for long periods of time. They also grow spikes on their leaves, which is really funny. And in rainforests, what did we learn about plants there? Plants in the rainforest grow big, long, spiky leaves with spikes on them as well. And what did we learn about plants in the Arctic? We learned that they grow close to the ground and they have long, deep roots. So now you can compare. You can compare the desert, so hot and dry, the rainforest, so wet and humid, and the Arctic, so cold and windy. We can compare all 3.